I mean, when you have National Guard everywhere and you are under martial law and you can't be driving your vehicle, nothing about masks and this kind of stuff. It was, you had to be home. You couldn't be out and about at all.
Right.
And by 6 o'clock in the evening, you were done.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Right, that was interesting. Did you, by chance, were you here when they first did the whole shutdown, like COVID shutdown? I think that was...
It was like the end the lockdown rally.
Well,
that was a while ago.
Well, it was like when they did the curfew, which was, I want to say that was like
it's not the
was
right
like
start.
June like 5th or something.
No, I work, and a lot of times in the summer my work gets me out of the state.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I wasn't here for the big riots that happened.
Yeah.
And when it comes to people talk about rallies, a rally is when you're positive for something. A protest is when you're against something. So if a person's going to have a group of people, let's say, reopen, Colorado or stop it, but all that kind of stuff, it should actually be called what it is, which is a protest. But I think when Ted Cruz and then candidate Donald Trump got together to go up against Barack Obama and his Iran deal, the media started calling it a rally, when in reality, by action, it was a protest. It should have been kept a protest. Because a rally is for positive, and a protest can be positive, but it's actually countermark something else. At least I think so.
Yeah, as the definition of protest and rally.
It'd be nice if we would all have the same definition of words.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Right now, I think the big disagreement is the difference between protest and riot. I think that's like a big one that's going on right now.
Well, if you're torching the village and you've got that's a riot. When there's harm involved and people get hurt, that's not a protest, that's a riot. When you're stopping people from being able to just get to their work because you decided you're going to throw a temper tantrum in the street and stop traffic, that's not a protest. That too is a riot. There's one thing to have a conversation and to view your point. It's another thing to really take over somebody else's rights to just get to work or to have a voice and begin to say something. And they really should come together on that. You don't have to have chaos and anarchy to be called a riot. But if you're trying to get to work, and I've decided, no, you can't go to work until you hear me out. And then after I tell you what I want to say, if I'm going to continue, you can't go to work until I let you go to work. Is that a protest? Or are you being confined? Or is that like a riot without getting hit? I mean, think about it.
There's a fine line to it, and then I come from like the thought process as well as like if you have a riot happening or a protest and it is stopping traffic, is the intention of the protest to create, a moment of, kind of confusion and understand, like trying to draw attention to something, and if it wasn't disruptive, would it be as effective? So that's kind of like the other thought I think on that side.
I can understand the impatience of going down the road to even get a permit to assemble and let's say be in the park. But there is rules and there are reasons for that. There's liabilities. You have insurance. You have the maintenance of a park. To look at the buildings around us right now where we have boarded up windows, painted all over our state capitol. They're just finally being cleaned up and taken down. But there's nothing peaceful about that. Now, if you're harming the environment because you're pitching a fit to get hurt, don't you think you might be putting up a big old Lexan wall for the people that you want to hear you or don't even want to talk to you? Then what ends up happening? You scream even more. And you burn more buildings down. When does it end? When somebody finally gets their way? Isn't that almost acting as a... there's nothing positive in that. Because whatever you do get, it's going to be bittersweet anyway. You have to create a win-win situation. And I think the people on the far right and the people on the far left got to take a breath sometime and get someplace near the middle. Because there you can actually have a conversation and accomplish something. And so both sides of the coin go forward.
Yeah, I think so as well. Let's do a quick little bit here and start diving in.
I didn't know if you're filming this or not.
Yeah, we got it.
We got some.
We're started.
So here, I just want to do here real quick. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself,
Sure, my name is Ron MacLachlan.
and your title of what you like.
I'm the founder of Pro Police Rally Colorado.
If we could just do that one more time, that'd be great.
Sure. My name is Ron MacLachlan, and I'm the founder of Pro Police Rally Colorado.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Cool. So yeah, we'll just dive into this a little bit.
Sure.
And we'll have like those conversation type bits, and I'll add some like
I like
different
that.
questions to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so yeah, we'll kind of go from there. Hit that. So we'll kind of start off with like a bunch of the questions that we had sent in there, and then I've added a few others that I think will help bring some of that conflict into the conversation too. You know what I mean? So just wait for that to go. Make sure Connor's ready. All good to go. Cool. Cool. So question number 1: what inspired you to be part of the What inspired you to advocate for the police force?
There's a lot of straw on that camel's back for me. At the time, what actually got me off the couch to go forward was my children. As a single parent, my daughter was in high school, my son was in middle school. Baltimore had been on TV for a good couple of days. And by that time, all the straw that got me there, as I'm asking my children what do they think about law enforcement, and they're giving me the answers in which they believe I would like to hear. But the enthusiasm behind that was somewhat suspect. So I thought I have a choice. I could basically have it my way or highway conversation, or just lead by example, the way I was taught by my father. So I decided to come down to the city here, get a permit, and do a pro-police march, actually. But at that time, nobody had ever seen anybody asked to do a pro-police anything. So they sent somebody from Hancock's office over, really well-dressed man. We spoke for a good 15, 20 minutes, and they thought, yeah, you can roll out, you can do this, basically. Then I had to go down and meet with a bunch of police over by the baseball stadium, and they said they would rather, instead of doing a march, do something in a park, just in case there was any issue. It'd be easier for them to protect us, and from each other, basically. I'm naive, I'm thinking, issue, what do you mean? And we had the first one here. But the straw on that back, you have to remember in context what was going on. You had Obama was the president. Ferguson had already happened. You had unrest going in Ferguson. Then you go into Baltimore. The people in the city of Baltimore thought it would be a good idea to basically allow the citizens to purge on the law enforcement for a couple of days. That lasted 3 or 4 days. Eric Holder did not like, I don't understand how he ever got to the head of the DOJ, but it was obvious that he did not care for the police department. And as you started seeing more and more dissension going on in our society, Black Lives Matter was just beginning to sprout some wings. They had all these promises of, Black Lives Matter and what they wanted to do for the black man and the black woman inside of our community. And they were making their arguments at that time. And I wish they had done what they actually said they were going to do, but that's another different question. We'll get to that later. And so by the time talking with my children and seeing people with picket signs saying a badge is not a license to kill, and I started thinking what it must be like to be a law enforcement officer, man, woman, or the child of one. What is their life like? I mean, if you put them in that kind of situation, how long as a human being before that might alter their own mindset on how they perform their job, how comfortable they are with their job? And somebody had to say something positive for these men and women, and that's how it got started.
So it came out of a desire to promote, a positive viewpoint of the police force.
They're human beings. When I was a child, my father was in the military. I grew up in Japan for 4 years, on Guam during the evacs, or just after the evacs. And I remember being in an airport as a child, watching my father in uniform. And he went to tie his shoe. And I'm standing there, and my dad was a lot bigger. There was a guy right around the corner. I could feel the hate he had for my father just because he was a person in uniform. And that you remember that kind of stuff. It's a connection. Would anybody want that for their children?
Yeah, you'd hope not, right?
What's that?
You'd hope not.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go here. We'll continue on with the police officers. What are the qualities of a police officer?
I'm not the person who's hires or decides who gets to be a police officer. I've never been a police officer. So I can only answer what I would think of the qualities might be or what I would look for as you got to have character. And just because you are character doesn't mean you have character. You have to have a sense of a true sense of right and wrong. I believe that you have to have the strength to take into account any situation that you're involved with. To try to, because you have to be in control. You know, you have a situation, no matter what it is, whether it be going to someone's house or pulling somebody over because of a blink or maybe a DUI possibility. You never know what you get to when you get in there. You've got to be able to assess the situation quickly, make sure that it's a positive for everybody involved. There's so much to it. It's kind of hard to just drop that into just a cookie cutter. Because each individual is going to be different. There are different kinds of jobs for police officers. Whether you're the person who has to be behind the desk and answer a million phone calls each day, or the person in the field. I think you'd have different qualities depending on what your job would be within the police force.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. With that being said, what is the ideal duty of the police?
That's a great question. I think it boils down to what it's always been, to protect and serve. To protect a community, often from itself, to serve the community as best you possibly can. I mean, I don't know of a single police officer that I've ever met that doesn't want to come out with a win-win situation. I haven't met those guys. Thank God. But again, I'm not a police officer, so I'm not the person maybe that should be asked a question. Maybe get a chance to talk to a couple of Denver's finest. We might get a better answer for these questions.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you think that the police are stretched thin currently in their role as police officers?
Oh, I don't know so much as in their role. I'm gonna grab my water. I think their role has been pretty solid from the get, and police are asked to do a million different things at one time. There's no doubt about that. In Denver, the population growth has just exponentially grown in the last 10 years. It's ridiculous. Police force is not. So if we really wanted to help the men and women in law enforcement to do the best they can for the community in which they serve and protect, we actually need more resources and more police officers, I believe, so that they're not stretched, meter of an antique cylinder.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so do you think that the implementation of social service officers will result in fewer police-related deaths?
No. I think it might be the exact opposite. Somebody has to be in control. I think having social services available, so you're not waiting for a Monday through Friday 9 to 5, would be wonderful. But I think on the scene, I think the police officers who are trained to handle a situation that can go south really quickly, they have to be the ones in charge. They have to make the place safe. And then at that point, if you want to bring some sort of a counselor who's got some experience, I would hope as a police officer themselves to come in at that point to help and assist. There might be some validity in that. But to have them oversee or overtake a situation, I don't think that's what to do.
Are you familiar with, I think it's called STAR? It's like it's a program right now that's been implemented in Denver where they have social service workers go out and address issues, what am I thinking of? Like domestic violence, drug-related issues, suicide kind of situations that the police would traditionally answer those calls to. But right now they have a social service that the city of Denver has rolled out as of, I think, July. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of how that's working for them, and I don't know what they're logging in their books for what their response is being. But I would rather see if there's a situation going on, I'd rather see a police officer there first before I somebody gets involved, because you never know how it's going to go.
Yeah, it's true. All right, here we go. So, is 26 weeks enough time for training a police officer?
I don't think you stop training. I mean, there's only so much time that you're going to spend in the classroom, and you've got to get in the field. And I don't know exactly the program itself. I have been down to the police academy. It's a pretty neat place. I've met some pretty neat people. The time frame, though, from when you start to when you get a chance to be in the field, whether it be, again, behind a desk or in a squad car or on a beat, depending on what the job title might be that you're applying for, I think that then the real training begins. I think that's going to boil down to the people that you put them in the field with. And now you're going to, I think, what is the real issue. And it's not the men and women in the rank and file. The biggest issues I think we have has got to be our city councils and our mayors. You see, our police chiefs, they are appointed by our city councils and our mayors. Our cities are governed by these city council members and the mayors. They decide how they want to have their streets policed. That's why it's different when you're in Aurora or Glendale or Lakewood or Arvada, or if you're up, in Colorado Springs. It's going to be a different conversation, but the police themselves, they come from the same environment, the same school. So they're the messenger. And I think they have to be, the city councils and the mayors have to be more accountable. I think that if a person is showing that they have stress-related issues, maybe they shouldn't be in the field for a while. Maybe they should be doing something else. But then you're looking at management to take and do their job. And instead of putting it off on somebody else, be accountable. Because without accountability, we don't have any growth whatsoever.
Perfect. That leads into another question that I have that's regarded to that. Let me just see what that one is.
Just going to quickly double check this camera.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, following up with that. Good. Cool. Following up that. What are your thoughts on how Denver local government has dealt with police brutality protests? Do you mind elaborating?
Absolutely. Before the event on July 19th here, I was up in the police station for a couple of hours and talking different logistics about whether to continue with the event or not. And a lot of information I got was given to me at that time. At that point, 76 police officers were injured already. And yet I was also told that up until that day, since May 28th, I believe, anywhere between 30 and 300 protesters, if you want to call them that, were out in the middle of the night terrorizing different neighborhoods in Denver every single night. If you don't allow the police officers to actually do their job, which is to create peace, they're supposed to be peacekeepers. So if you've got somebody out there screaming and yelling and terrorizing someone that's trying to just get some sleep so they can go to work in the morning and pay their bills and feed their family and pay their taxes, those people don't get a chance to get rest, and yet the police are told to stand down and watch. Wrong. These protesters really should be accountable. They should have been arrested, and then they should be put to a situation where they have to be accountable for their actions. But by not allowing a person to do their job, it's sort of like trying to say, tackle that person at half speed if you're playing football. Whenever you do that, somebody's going to get hurt. Usually the person going at half speed, which is why I think we had 76 police officers at that time that were injured.
What would you say to the protesters that were injured by the police?
That's a good question.
What would you say to the non-violent protesters that were injured by the police?
That's a better question. First off, the right to peacefully assemble and have your point of view put out there to be heard is our constitutional right. I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. That coin has got two sides, and both sides say, yeah, speak. Whether you are a rally or a protest, say what you have to say. And one shouldn't interfere with the other, because the idea is to be protest against the police, by all means have it. Just don't torch the village when you're doing it. You know, and if you're going to have a pro-police event, have it. Let them have their day. Both sides get heard, and you move on from there. Maybe you can actually create a dialogue. What to say to these people? I guess I'd have to ask them first why. Why? What is their reasoning to be throwing bricks at police, or frozen bottles of water, or breaking windows, or for the non-peaceful, or torching part of the village? Does that really resolve anything? Does anything positive actually come from something like that? And for those that are there to peacefully,
Let's pause for the chime going. I think that goes every 15 minutes.
Yep. Does.
Turns out. Continue, sorry.
and for those that are peacefully protesting, wrong place, wrong time, and having a peaceful protest turn into an anarchist situation, and that's horrible. You really got to feel for the people that are there that just want to have their voices heard, because from their perspective, they need to let their voice out. And I really don't want to see anybody get hurt, whether it be a peaceful or not peaceful American, basically, you know, a citizen, a human. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. There's got to be a better way.
Okay, so here you go. Let's see. Let's see here. I'm kind of jumping around some of these questions because I think some of them relate better to others here.
Sure.
So you said you're not very familiar with the Senate bill. It's 2017 is what it is.
Oh, so I got the wrong Senate bill.
Yeah, I was just
I'm
wrong.
real good with the one I researched.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, this one's different. So obviously not very familiar with it.
Can you give me some outlines of what it is? Maybe we can. I don't want to talk out of turn though.
Yeah, I understand. And so let me see. Like, trying to remember. It's been a while since I've read it, but basically it was a police accountability bill, and so it got rid of qualified immunity for police in Denver. So like took away the qualified immunity.
You know what that ends up doing.
So yeah, that's the question. So like let's talk about qualified immunity for the police.
Let's do that. All right. I want to make sure when I read what qualified immunity is, we're on the same page. Because you're saying for the police in Denver, but it doesn't say that in when you research it. I got you. I have you a copy as well. So I think everybody should be held accountable for their actions. Period. I actually do. But then you have to define what exactly here it is, qualified immunity. See if I can get my section out of it. Got the wrong Senate bill. There's two definitions here. Wikipedia and then whatever the first one that came up as. Wikipedia is basically a little bit abbreviated. That will be on the third page, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, which one are you looking at here?
Let's just go for the first one, qualified immunity. Okay. And if you don't mind, I'll just read it.
Yeah, for sure.
Qualified immunity. In the United States, qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials performing discretionary functions immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. It is a form of sovereign immunity, less strict than absolute immunity, that is intended to protect officials who make reasonable but mistaken judgments about open legal questions, extending to all officials, but the plainly competent, I can't read right now, competent, or those who knowingly violate the law. Qualified immunity applies only to government officials in civil litigation and does not protect the government itself from suits arising from officials. Now, basically what it's saying is, if you know what you're doing and you still go against it, broke the law, you should be held accountable. And I don't disagree with that. At the same token, you have to look at all the facts. When it comes to your police, yeah, they should be held accountable for their actions, and so should the people that they are interacting with. It's a two-way street. So if somebody puts you in a situation, you have to look at all the facts before you can go down that road. Either a police officer, a mayor, a city council person, whoever might be in a position of authority within a community. The idea of immunity from something, I've heard people argue that it means people are going to be afraid to do their jobs, that you're going to have lawsuits, you're going to have things coming out of left field, and all of a sudden you're going to be stretching what was legal, what was not legal, what was reasonable, what was not reasonable, and now you're handcuffing the police from doing their job. I've heard that argument before. I can understand that. There's a lot of lawyers. They're not the best people in the world from my perspective. There's some good guys out there, ladies, but some of these guys are real pieces of work. I think you should be held accountable for your actions, but I think you have to be fair in the assessment to whatever the circumstances were that got those actions going on.
So
I don't think you can take anything out of context.
okay. Not to get too far off track here, but seeing the Breonna Taylor case, do you feel that qualified immunity is hurting the police in this situation, or is it benefiting the police in this situation? It's obviously benefiting the officers that are being charged with.
I think right now, until they uncover all the evidence, and they uncover more evidence. Just I saw today of somebody's body cam footage that was walking through a crime scene and shouldn't have been there. I think until all of the evidence is gathered, and it could be painstakingly long to do that, unfortunately, but I think ultimately who it's going to benefit more than anybody else, I would hope, is Breonna Taylor's family, because they should be getting the truth, and then from the truth you go forward from there. If they go through this process, they find out that the police officers were correct, and of course you now got the other side coming back with she was involved with drugs and all kinds of other things going from that line of conversation as well. The firearm that was shot off by her boyfriend apparently did hit somebody, even though he said it was just a warning shot, and that's when the police said they reacted. So I don't know what's true. I don't think anybody can know what's true until you get all the facts. I think it takes a little time, but get the facts, get the truth, and then accordingly act.
Okay. Let's see.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about the pro-police rally too here, and kind of your experience with that. I don't think we touched on that yet.
It's just a Sunday afternoon in the park. Yeah.
Hey, just give us a little bit of the pro police rally interaction, if you wouldn't mind.
It's not one day. It's actually 5 years. It's the 6th annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And the very first one, Occupy, was here. The second one, Occupy, was here. The third one, Antifa, was here. The fourth one, we got right down. The fifth one was, it wasn't hardly attended at all. It was just one of those, just didn't go down. There was no urgency. It just kind of slipped off the radar. And then there was this one. And each of the times that you had protesters here, every single time, the protesters were allowed to take away our rights to speak, to be assembled, every single time. And the chief of police knew what was going on. They sat there and watched these guys get all riled up. They had me on the phone talking to me. Are you not the chief, but one of the people from his office? You know, what is your escape plan? How are you going to get out of here? I'm getting out of here. You know, that's not the point. You know, we have a band, we got food, we got a permit, we've done everything the way legitimately you need to do rights to be using this park. And we did. Now, by them not allowing us to have our peaceful right of assembly, which we actually paid for, to me that's not correct. You're not right. But that comes down to your mayor, your city council, and whoever they appoint as their chief, not the rank and file that were here. And if it wasn't for the rank and file, actually one guy in the SWAT team saying, no, I'm not leaving, I'm staying. Who knows what would have happened? So I'm disappointed, it would be the way to put it, on how that came out.
What would you say about all of the pro-police rally supporters that showed up with baseball bats and hammers and
Here?
yeah, and
On July
rifles?
19th, there wasn't one.
Oh, I disagree because I actually have video footage of multiple people. There was a group of people over here on this thing that I tried to interview, and they
Police rally guys who carrying baseball bats?
they had an entire bag full of baseball bats, and every single one of them was holding them. They were holding them alongside their leg, so it wasn't very obvious. But they had an entire bag, and then next to them there was another group that had handguns. I saw two people have handguns at least in their waistbands. I saw another person had his stuff down their thing. They were all wearing, like pro-police rally, like T-shirts, Blue Lives Matters or anything. So it's very distinguishable.
I'd like to see your footage.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious.
But we saw a lot of people that had weapons on the other side.
I know that when I'm trying to help a guy get a motorcycle through a mob, and I get hit across the face, and I get hit several times on top with a megaphone, I'm not carrying any kind of weapon. And I wasn't out trying to carry a weapon or harm anybody there whatsoever. When there are people that come over the top and rush the stage before we can even have a song. When a lady that's standing there looking at Michelle Malkin pulls out a extension stick, I hadn't even finished giving an invocation, and these guys ransacked this stage and started fighting immediately. So if there was somebody there or anybody there that was there thinking that might happen and they were going to be able to protect themselves, I hate to think that they felt they would have to go down to those lengths to do that, but I can understand why they would. Look at the rioting that's been going on. None of this had to happen. It very well could have been stopped before they got to the park. The park was paid for. I paid for it. I got the permit. I even asked the police about putting up a fence. And the guy I spoke to said, they just jump in. So for me, the agitators in that particular environment were not the pro-police rally people. If anything, they were protecting themselves and protecting some of the elderly that were there to try to show support for the law enforcement people. The amount of people that came over the on top that I encountered, there was nothing peaceful about any of these people. And they were hell-bent on making sure that we were not allowed to even enjoy our afternoon. No party. They started putting that out there. And they did what they wanted to do. But I want to see your footage. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. Like, I was just like, as we were over there, like, captured that whole situation. They came over here and then tried to do some interviews. Had multiple interviews over there, and then came over here and, like, nobody would talk. But they did have weapons. They had bats.
What time did you were over there?
We were like right as everything happened. We were here like right in the midst of it all. Actually, it was.
So,
really
when
wild.
did you see people in that particular dress like that?
That was right before, I would say the pro BLM group showed up.
The what?
I would say pro Black Lives Matter.
Well, Black Lives Matter. When was that?
Sorry, during the police rally here. So like as the other group came through, that was like we were here as that other group was like making their way over here trying to interview before any of the commotion really started.
So,
That's when I had seen all of the weapons really, and then also like throughout during.
Not to take away from what you saw on this side, how about all the people that brought weapons with them over there to come here?
I only saw pots and pans, but yeah.
This was not a pot pan.
Yeah.
Okay,
sides.
what's that?
But there's weapons on both sides.
There's weapons.
I'm not saying there wasn't, but they were not peaceful in any way, shape, or form on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing.
It could have been done better.
Definitely. Let me see here. Okay, so what does What does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Smoke and mirrors. It's a canard, if you ask me. What they were talking about in 2014 when they first started, what an incredible opportunity they had, what they could have done in 14 and 15. If Black Lives really mattered to the organization Black Lives Matter, if the people in the communities in this country, they started going in 2015. By 15, they were already going up into Canada, Australia, Africa, the UK, I believe Germany. They were very, very well set on becoming a global organization, which is wonderful. They can go global. But during that process, as one lady I read said that she is a trained Marxist. I know. I got to stop.
It's all right. It's all right.
There we go.
I need to double check this.
Right as we were getting in, there it is. So yeah, you were saying that the Black Lives Matter was a global organization, or on its way to becoming a global organization.
Yes, they were, and they've done that. They've also, as one lady I saw interviewed, saying that she's a trained Marxist. Okay. Black Lives Matter. If the people in the communities in our Black Lives Matter.
Let's hold for this helicopter again. Sorry about that.
A lot of activity around here.
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. now, so
They've had a great, an incredible opportunity that I think they have completely squandered. They have not gone into the communities themselves. You don't ever you hear people getting their buildings torched when Black Lives Matter teamed up with any other organization, usually Antifa, when they're walking through and torching the village. But you never hear about them fixing that village. They've got $1 billion in their coffers. You hear about them arguing and being very forceful, very aggressive, and which means you're going to have other people get aggressive coming back. That's not a healthy thing to do. They've got the resources, they've got the backing, they've got the money to actually do something positive for the black community. Scholarships, help people get out of the whatever situation they might be in. They can do that and be real leaders and have people actually want to support them all the way across the board. They had that 5 years ago, but rather than doing that, they went off to go create some global empire. And now, being Marxist, communist basically is what that is. This election we have right now has got nothing to do with Trump or Biden. It's an ideology election. Black Lives Matter is part of a quote-unquote socialist mindset, which arose by any other name that still arose, which is communism. The opposite side of that is capitalism. And that's what we have, two complete different ideologies in our society, which is why we have such a big divide going on inside of our society right now. And Black Lives Matter is a big part of fundraising and getting the anarchists that are in our cities right now going on. And I hate to see that because look what they could have done with what they have. That's a disappointment. You know, if you really want real change, you don't tear down statues. You don't try to burn somebody's history. There's a reason why the rear view mirror in life is so small compared to the windshield. But you still have to have the rear view mirror. So you know what's behind you, what's coming up, so you don't, run out, get off the rails. So we need to embrace what we've gone through, where we've been, learn from it, grow from that, and go forward. Not tear something down to rebuild it into a whole different structure, which is what Black Lives Matter is trying to do. And that's a shame, because they're creating a huge split and division in this country right now. And they could be the exact opposite, and they choose not to.
So you would say that so you're telling me that Black Lives Matter is more of an organization versus a statement?
If the statement and the organization fit, wouldn't that be nice? They don't. That's why it's a canard, a provocation, smoke and mirrors. Think of it this way. If back in the 70s, and you were going by action, not by words, and they were trying to get the abortion law to go through. If you went by action, it would be pro-life or pro-death. Can't sell pro-death, so what do you sell? Pro-choice. And they did, and that's how that got caught. That's how that got where it's at, and they've moved on from there, and it is what it is. Well, you can't go communism or capitalism. You sure as heck can't sell communism. So what do you sell? A racial war? Inequality? Brutality? Anything that you can find to create the dissension within while you're administering. If you come around here on a Thursday or Friday night over the summer and you look at this park right behind me and the generators are plugged in and nobody's got a permit, and you've got all these people sitting around here being basically indoctrinated into Black Lives Matter and the Marxist organizations in which they are and what they are instilling, that's what's going on. And that's what this is about right now here. The relevance of what you're talking about is our split and our division, our ideology in our society. And you've got two complete different roadmaps. And it used to be that the Republicans, the Democrats, they didn't get along. They squabbled by air, by land, by sea, how to get to the same port. We have two ports now. Now, how do we guide that pace back? It's out of the tube. How do we guide that somewhere to where it can be beneficial for everybody? And unfortunately, the person, the organization with the most influence and the most power right now is Black Lives Matter. And look what they're doing with it. Let's burn it down if we can't get what we want. If they don't agree with us, somehow somebody blocked them from being able to sell their goods or their wares. You know, block that particular company and that organization. We will be back. We're going to take your house. Reparations. What the heck is that? You're going to bully the entire United States of America? I don't think so. And eventually, the dog will no longer allow the tail to wag its ass. And it will change things. And I hope we don't get there. That's how I feel about Black Lives Matter.
Okay. What would you say? So, how would you define Marxism?
Communism.
Okay. Just flat like that, like.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Let's see. Is Blue Lives Matter political or race neutral?
I think Blue Lives Matter is race neutral.
Okay.
You look at the cops. You have black cops, you have white cops, you have Asian cops, you have Middle Eastern cops, you have Hispanic cops, you've got gay cops, you've got straight cops, you've got tranny cops, you've got male cops, you've got female cops. They are part of the eclectic of cities and counties and states in which they actually protect and serve. So yeah, they're not about a particular color of a person. You got ones that believe in God, ones that are agnostic. You know, all of them are there.
Okay. So, what does defund the police mean to you?
Split, divide, conquer. Take away as many resources as you possibly can, so you can implement what you want. And maybe if you get real lucky at it, maybe you can federalize the police force. So if you do that, now you take the municipalities away from, let's say, your mayors, your governors, and federalize them. It's just one step closer to a communistic rule that we have here, creating anarchy and chaos. What we don't need to do is defund the police. What we need to do is fund the police. If they need more resources, help them get it. If they need more people, help them get it. If they need more education, help them get it. Whatever it is they need to do their job as best they possibly can to serve and protect the community in which they work for, help them get it. Don't take it away from them. And if you want to hold somebody accountable, aside from just a beat cop, hold the city mayor, the chief of police, the city mayor, the council, and the governor of whatever state, county, and city you happen to be a part of. Because ultimately, unless you're an elected official, like a county sheriff, not the sheriff in Denver, which is appointed, but let's say Steve Reams out in Greeley, or Spurlock, out in Douglas. When you're an elected sheriff, your power is a lot different, and your accountability is a lot different because you're a constitutional law person. But when you are a police officer or a police chief, you are appointed, and these people that are the city councils and mayors, they let you know how they want their place policed. So if you really want to make a change, be mindful on who you put in those positions of power. Because those are the ones that are dictating to the police what they can and cannot do.
So local votes count.
Yes, they do.
Check on this. Yeah, one moment here. So quick battery change on that guy.
I think we have like probably 2 more questions.
That's fine. Hopefully, I'm not too animated.
No, I mean honestly, it's
it's
great,
great.
because it creates passion and like that's what we want. We want like that animation, because other people that we've interviewed have been animated as well. So that's because what it shows is it's passion, and it shows people's intent and like interest on the subject. Really, I think.
Good mellow, dude. Good mellow.
I've been mellow. Yeah, you see me not be so mellow.
All right.
I'm reining it in.
I know. It's tough
It's
to,
out of my character.
Let's see here. So, God. So some people associate Blue Lives Matter with racism and white supremacy. What are your thoughts on that?
That's convenient. It's convenient to call it racist or white supremacy, because the police actually support and work for the entire community. I have a question for you. Do you think it's possible for a black person to be racist?
Yes.
I do too. But do you ever hear about that?
It's less of a talked about subject. Yes.
Why?
I'd say probably because they experience it a lot more, and they're such a smaller portion they're such a minority of the population. It's just less common.
I can understand that as far as being a lesser population. But I think some of the largest voices that we have out there. When I look at things that I see, the race card, heck, just try to be a white guy. Just that alone. You can't tell me that you don't get looked at in certain ways just because you're white, differently you would have been in that situation if you weren't. And the reality is, there is no such thing as a racist, to be quite frank with you. You're a culturalist, because there's only one race. It's actually the human race. If I needed a liver, and you happen to have a darker pigment skin than I did, but your liver was a perfect fit for me, do you think I would care that your skin color was different than mine? Or vice versa, would you care if my skin color was different than yours and yours was different? So there's really one race. It's a human race. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of different cultures throughout this planet. And they come in every shape, size, and color. But you really can't sell culturalism, And when did we become racist instead of prejudiced? A prejudiced person, the way I was raised, is somebody who's pretty, ignorant, and they're in their fear. They can be taught, and they can learn, you can grow. But a racist is somebody who's hate. I mean, absolute hate. Is that kind of like jumping from, Pop Warner football to the NFL? That's a pretty big leap. And yet now we've got racist and phobia this and whatever, xenophobe, whatever phobe you can think of. People, toughen up the skin a little bit. Get past a few things and let's get together and go forward. But to try to demonize somebody because of the color of their skin, how ridiculous is that? And so when you talk about Blue Lives Matter being a racist or being a white supremacist, Blue Lives Matter is an organization that's put together for the law enforcement, which is every kind of human being on the planet in law enforcement, because they are a rule of law. And their law isn't like you get a special law because of who your daddy is, or what color your skin is, or who you voted for, or who you like for a football team, or any other kind of way to segregate somebody. They have to look at the law the way that their mayor, their city council, their chief have told them to implement that law within that city. Now, that's just how it is. So, again, go talk to the city mayors, the councils, the governors, the brass. It's not so much the men and women that rank and file on the street that have any kind of issue. And start looking more about what the positive the police do, as opposed to picking a pepper out of the fly poop and jumping on the bandwagon about something because someone's got a video clip. And by the time you guys get done, not you guys, but somebody gets done examining this video clip, and they start seeing different angles and more information comes in. Oh, wow, gee, maybe it wasn't the way we thought it was. In the meantime, it's too late. You've already destroyed another family, not you, but someone's already destroyed another family. Patience, take your time, get the information, and go forward. And Blue Lives Matter is anything but a racist organization or a white supremacist organization. Not even close.
With that being said, I think we'll like wrap it up on this one. This is that thing.
Now, did I offend you guys with my answers?
No.
I mean,
Honestly, I expected to be offended at some point in time in some portion of this creation process. So,
but I'm not it.
you haven't gone too far yet. We're good.
Fist on the face. That's good. Yeah. Thanks for getting that.
So here we go. So that
Now, out of
last,
curiosity, by you saying that, are you more in line with the Clear Black Lives Matter movement and Antifa, yourself personally?
myself, I am in line with what is right. I find that there's an extremes to both sides.
I agree.
So it's a matter of trying to find that middle ground, essentially. It's really trying to figure out what is the major indifferences and why are they so indifferent, and how can those be switched up in a positive way.
What was the last question you weren't going to ask me?
So the next question that I'd like to ask is, I think we'll wrap it up on this as well. Is and you had said that it's not a race situation; it's more of a cultural situation.
Yeah.
What is the cultural issue with black men and women that is getting them killed more by police?
Well, they're actually killed more by each other than they ever have been by police. There are more black on black murders than there are anything else in our society. Period. Way more. And as a matter of fact, there are more white people that have been shot by police in 2018, 2019, 2020 than black people. I mean, that's factual. You can look that up. But the horror story culturally is, okay, let's go with the Hispanics. Very familiar, very family oriented. People who come from another country to come here to have the most opportunities they possibly can. And they work together as a family as much longer than many other people. You got, generations living in the same household, that you just do. You have that when it comes to the Jewish community. They are very, very tight-knit. They work very well together. They work hard with each other. They help make sure people get, school, make sure people get college, make sure people don't starve, help people get work. If you've ever been in LA and you've been around the Jewish community, it's amazing to watch how these people work together as a community. In our black community, unfortunately, there are issues I think stem more than, and I'm a single father, I think has to do with family. I think it has to do with having a family staying together for whatever reason that might be. I think hopefully that the stuff that just came out with the current president, he did a thing with to help get a lot of people out of prison. He's working for a Reform Act. I don't know a whole lot about it. From my understanding, it's something that hadn't been done in a long time. I hope that goes well. I think that we put people in a predicament where they're up against the wall, so they're up against the wall, and within their culture they are. You see, misery doesn't just love company. Misery loves miserable company. So what people will do is they will drag people down to help to wallow in their garbage to justify their actions, as opposed to pushing people up. And I think too often, and in several different sub-communities within communities, because you can't put everybody all in one big community or one culture. You just can't. But when you start looking at the places where people are living, the way they're living their lives, the choices in which they make based off of what they have to choose from is a big key. And I think that has got to do with the cities and the mayors, the city councils again, to where they allocate the funds, the tax dollars that come in to help get people like Black Lives Matter. What could they be doing? What would be more important if Black lives actually mattered to Black Lives Matter than being in these cities and helping these kids get off of the drugs, Get off get them into trade schools, get them in, raise their kids while the parents can get the education they need, so they can get the jobs in which they want, so they can fulfill the dreams that they might have. That would be a heck of a lot more important than burning and pillaging that we have going on in our societies. If you want to go cultural, I think that's the base. Everything's going to start from the kitchen table. And if you've got a single mom or a single dad trying to work the best they can, raise their children, it's not an easy plight for anybody. But if you're in the inner city, it's even harder. If you've got drugs going on down the street, you got prostitution, and you got burglaries and all kinds of that stuff going on, which you do everywhere anyway. But if it's heightened in these areas, that makes it that much more difficult for the child to get through that process, to get to be the next Ben Carson that came out of it. How hard is it for that man to get to where he got to? So we must look at our cultural differences that we have and how we can help that grow and grow our society from within, not from without, not from outside, and not have a huge government tell the people, enable the people to what they can and cannot do, but have the republic in which we stand, which is what we are to this day, actually tell the government what we need them to do. They're our employees. And yet we don't act like that. We don't treat them like that. And they treat us as if we are a voting bloc. So split, divide, conquer. If we continue to live in the minutiae in our political society, to where you've got, whites over here, Asians over there, Hispanics over there, blacks over there, gays, trans, straights, Chief fans, Raider fans, whatever. We keep doing that in our society. It's like taking us as cattle. And now when this politician or that politician needs a vote from this organization or that cattle, those group of people, they pull that out of their backside, give these people the voice, the talk they want, they get the vote, they stay in power. But what actually happens with these people? The accountability's got to start not just with like law enforcement in the street or the person who got in front of the law enforcement. It's also got to be from the top down. And that's from your president all the way down to your Congress, your Senate. All these people have to be accountable. How are they spending our money? What are they putting their money at? What are they doing that's benefiting the people in our own society? That's what's important. And yet we keep that to be the last thing on the dinner table. Now, and look at Baltimore. When Baltimore was burning 5 years ago, it's had more money than as much money per capita than any other city in the United States. Yet it's democratically run, has been for 50 years. Where's the money? Look at the infrastructure. I mean, we're in Denver, it's beautiful. But look at Baltimore. Oh my gosh. So why are these people not getting the education that's available for them? Why are these people not given the opportunities that our taxpayers are paying to have that happen for them? Why? That's the question. And the people who need to be accountable is two people. It's the politicians that hold on to the money and the people who allow this kind of lifestyle to stay inside there. And why would they do that? Because they're not taught that, yes, there is an opportunity to go forward. They're not shown that you can roll up your sleeves. You can be in a better spot tomorrow if you're willing to work your butt off and continue working. There is an end to the process to grow. But we don't even teach that anymore in our schools. We don't teach how important it is to have dreams. And that in this country, you can attain your dreams. Why do you think so many people come from all over the world to get to this country? Because you can attain your dreams. But how come Americans don't see it? Because of what we're being taught in our schools. It's a mess. And it needs to be taken a look at. I think reform across the board is not a bad thing. I think getting people from different cultures to get together, to have a conversation, to put out not just their grievances, that's easy, but put down what they actually see that makes sense to them. We have more in like than we have separating us. I don't know a single parent who's responsible that doesn't want to have a good job so they can take care of their family, that doesn't want to have more opportunities for their children in which they had for themselves, that doesn't want to be able to live in a safe and clean environment to grow and prosper. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants that. Whether you're from Spain or Japan, and I lived in Japan, they want that there too. Or whether you're from the United States or from Canada. Now, how we get there is the question. And we have our Constitution. If we just use it and live by it, but just be a constitutionalist, how much better would this place be? I just start there. Anyway, I know I get caught up on this stuff, but it's simple. And that's the way we choose to live. And then we want to be, what, a victim? No. Step up, stand up, wipe yourself up, figure business, and handle your day. Don't be a victim, ever. Handle your business. That's what I think.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's very true. Come together as a society. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, what would as like a final comment of, yeah, what do we need to do to come together as a society? How can we come about finding our middle ground?
We can start, I think, by putting down the axe. I think we can start by stop demonizing each other. Everybody has to wake up and have their day. You know, instead of putting somebody down to make yourself feel good, up somebody up. That'll make you feel a heck of a lot better. The joy will always be the journey. The gift will always be in the giving. That's really how it works. So it's like what did President Kennedy say? Not ask what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And it don't have to just be the country. How about your neighbor? No matter, and how about your community, your neighborhood, your city? You know, we can start there. And as we go there, we'll start to get some of this barnacles off of our backs. Maybe we'll start to breathe a little bit as a society. Maybe we'll start to actually communicate. You know, it takes. I've been talking a lot, and that's more than usual. And I talk, but we do have 2 ears for a reason. We need to actually sit down and talk with each other, and not go away with what can we get out of the meeting, but what can we give to the meeting. And there's nothing more important that anybody can ever give than themselves. And there's nothing more horrible you can ever take away from somebody but you. Because there isn't a single life on this planet that isn't incredible and precious and a gift. Every single person you ever meet is a gift to this planet, to this society. And if they start seeing themselves, not patting yourself on the back, but the humility of, I am no better than anybody I'll ever meet. But nobody I'll ever meet is going to be better than me. It's a parity. We all have gifts that we bring to the table. And together, that becomes one heck of a force to reckon with as far as what we can get done. I think it comes down to what you can give and plant the seeds. You don't get an apple off the tree the day you plant that seed. But if you plant it, you nourish it, you work with it, those apples will eventually be there. I think we need to start there. And I hope Black Lives Matter sees this and goes, you know what? We're going to go community. That's what we're going to do. We're going to start putting up grants for people to get to school. Start putting up, how can we help people get an education in these communities? I hope you guys see this. Please do this so that your name and your actions actually meet. And I think that would be a wonderful thing to happen if that could happen.
Ideally, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.